Alright, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you guys are all doing well. You're enjoying this weather. You're not flying in the air. Allah Mubarak. You know, I had to print these papers earlier this morning. And I was about to take off, bro. I was about to, just fly in the air, bro. Alhamdulillah. So, just like I promised last week, for those of you who were there last week, I printed you guys some notes. So that, not so that you can't take notes in the class, you should be taking notes in the class, but I know for a lot of us, we just like to kind of sit down and stare in the ceiling. So at least you can take something with you back home, to at least look at the information that we're covering in the lectures. And because, as I also had mentioned last week, probably once in a month we'll have like I don't want to call it an exam, but like a very short assessment, just for all of us, to do during the class, and we'll grade it during the class, and we'll continue on our way, inshallah. So please do not throw these notes away, okay? So if you don't plan on using these notes, and you're just gonna toss them around or throw them in the trash, then I would prefer you just tell me, don't give it to me, okay? Because I will be I spend a lot of times writing these things. I don't want to, when I pack up my stuff and after you guys are gone and I'm trying to go home and I see this on the ground, I see it in the trash, I see it this and that, okay? So, haram. So if you, so these are all for you. So I will give you 2 sheets for today. And actually, can I get one of the guys to volunteer? Yeah, come up, one of you. One of you. So just give give one of each to the guys and get one of each. So you're getting 2 sheets of paper. Do you want to also help us hand out the sheets for the girls? Yes? So just give one of this and one of this, okay? And then whatever is left left after that, just bring them back here, okay? So you're getting 2 sheets of paper right now. One of them is for the notes of the last class, okay, the stuff that we covered in the last class. And another sheet of paper is for what we will, inshallah, be covering for this class, inshallah. Okay? So I'll just give a minute for the papers to go around. And again, if you don't think, ta'al, boys, come here. Come take one of these. These are the notes for the classes, as I mentioned last week. And no. Like, two goes for a person, and this is another 2. So give that back to Muhammad. Brother, it's not that complicated, bro. Okay. Are these leftovers? Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khair. Can I have the leftovers, please? Yalla, why are you taking 10 years to give them out, bro? There's only 3 people here. Jazakallah khair. Did you take one too? La ilaha illallah. Okay, here you go. Okay, let's just get started, inshallah. So, last week we kind of talked about the structure. We mentioned different things. You'll find them in the notes here. We mentioned why do we even bother going through all of this? Why do we study the Quran? We mentioned some of the different names of the Quran, and we concluded at the very end. Remember, we started kind of breaking down how the Quran is structured. We mentioned it is made out of 114 surahs. We explained how the surahs are named. We explained how the surahs are ordered. We mentioned the 30 juz', right? And actually didn't mention this last week, but the ajza', the 30 juz' was not something that the Prophet ﷺ came up with. Rather, it was the scholars of the Quran. They did this in the future. Believe it or not, because they wanted to make it easier for the people to recite Quran. So their idea was, we're going to cut the Quran into 30 pieces, and so that people can just recite 1 juz' every day. And that way, once a month, they can recite the Quran. So we should try our best to also, recite the Quran, or at least listen to the Quran to the best of our ability. And we also mentioned, the hizb, that point confuses a lot of you guys. But we mentioned, what that star symbol is that you run into when you sometimes recite the Quran, right? It marks the quarter, half, 3/4, and a full hizb. And we concluded by mentioning that surahs are broken down into Makki surahs and Madani surahs. And as our friend here corrected last time, Makki surahs are referring to the surahs that were revealed before the Hijrah, whereas Madani surahs are the surahs that were revealed after the Hijrah. Even though most of the Makki surahs were revealed in Mecca and most of the Madani surahs were revealed in Medina. Okay? However, there were some surahs that were considered Madani surahs that were not necessarily revealed in Medina, but they're considered Madani. Why? Because they were revealed after Hijrah. Make sense? Any questions about this stuff? So this was all from last week. Last week's notes. So for this week, inshallah, or for today's class, inshallah, we're going to try to the best of our ability to go through, to begin with Surah An-Naba, the first surah that we find in Juz' Amma. And by the way, here, kind of a side note here, why is Juz' Amma called Juz' Amma? Okay, again, it's not that Allah Azza wa Jalla did not reveal it and say that, oh, this Juz' is called Juz' Amma. Rather, it's a name that is given by the scholars, okay? They just pick the first word, for example, of each Juz' and they say, we'll name the whole Juz' by the first word of the Juz', for example. So, Juz' Amma, the first word that comes up in Juz' Amma is Amma Yatasa'alun, right? So the word Amma. Same thing, Juz' Tabarak, the 29th Juz', the first word that comes up in the surah, in the Juz', sorry, is Tabarak alladhi biyadihi al-mulk. So it is called Juz' Tabarak. The 28th Juz', قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّتِي تُجَادِلُكَ. So it's called قَدْ سَمِعَ. Okay? So on and so forth. Now, not every juz' in the Quran necessarily has a label as convenient as Amma and Tabarak, okay? But it's, just good information to have in the back of your head. It's not something that is revealed by Allah. Rather, it is just a label given by the scholars of the Quran. So, the first surah that we find in Juz' Amma is called Surah An-Naba. And the main theme that we find in Surah An-Naba is the idea that the Day of Judgment is very much real. The Day of Judgment is not just a fairy tale, okay? For many of us, perhaps ever since we were little kids, we were 4 or 5 years old, maybe it's our parents who told us the first about the Day of Judgment, and maybe it's our Islamic studies teachers or something. But perhaps, when we talk about the Day of Judgment, it's almost like a scene out of the movies. Have you guys ever watched the movie, not that you should be watching movies, but have you ever guys watched this movie called 2012? Has anyone watched that movie before? I remember when I was still, a kid at the time. I think I was like grade 6, grade 5 or something like that. And I remember there was this movie called 2012 that came out. And basically the whole point of the movie, this was like back in 2009 or something. And the whole point of the movie was to kind of mention that, the world is going to end in 2012. And they show that, as soon as the calendar changed to 2012, crazy things start happening to the world, meteors start falling from the top, the seas start rising, and people were like, I remember like my friends at school, like Muslims, they were like, oh, that's Yawm al-Qiyamah right there, right? And so that's, a lot of us, this is how we treat Yawm al-Qiyamah, unfortunately, right? It's like a scene out of a movie. It's like a fairy tale, like, the sky is gonna be torn, the sun is gonna, shut off its light, there's gonna be this earthquake, people are gonna be screaming, people are gonna be crying, and what's going on, the seas are turned into a fire. But Surah An-Naba comes to remind you, my brother, my friend, the Day of Judgment is not a movie. It's something very, very real, and you will witness it, and it will definitely happen. Now, the people of Mecca back in the day, Surah An-Naba was of course a Makki surah, and it was revealed in very, very early Mecca. And many people, the Quraysh, of course, they were mocking the message of Islam. By the way, for those of you who want the notes, you can take, you can come to the front and take one of each of these worksheets. Yeah. So I'll just put this here. So these are the notes for last week, and these are the notes for this week. So when the people of Mecca, of course, first heard of the message of Islam, and they were warned about the punishment and warned about the hellfire, a lot of the people there, they took it as a joke. Like, come on, bro, really? You think something is gonna happen after we die? Like, khalas, bro. After we die and our bodies decompose and we are buried, nothing is gonna happen. Do you really think we're gonna come back to life? So they would mock and they would make a joke out of this idea that, one day you will come back to life. And so the surah, it responds to their mockery and it challenges them and it gives them proofs. And we will see this throughout the Quran, and especially in Juz' Amma. Allah Azza wa Jal provides you with evidences that, for example, the Day of Judgment will actually happen. He gives you evidences that a day shall come when you come back to life. And we find this in Surah An-Naba, and we also find that Allah Azza wa Jal describes, throughout the surah, what happens to those who will obey and what happens to those who disobey. So Surah An-Naba overall is made up of 40 ayahs, according to most of the masahif. So if you pick up you can say like a typical mushaf in your masjid or in your home, the mushaf that is printed in Medina, then you will find it as 40 verses. However, don't be surprised if you, for example, open a different Quran, if you ever go to maybe you visit back home, or you visit Morocco or Tunis or Libya or this and that, and you find like a different number of verses. It's still the same verses, but there's differences about how many verses there were. So some say 40, some say 41. It's not that big of a deal. However, remember last week we mentioned that every surah has different names sometimes. Not every surah just has a singular name. Some surahs have different names. And remember, just to kind of recap from last week, we mentioned that the names of the surahs are not always something that is revealed by Allah Azza wa Jal. Sometimes it is the Sahaba that come together and they come up with the names of the surah. How? By basically taking one word from the surah. Like for example, Surah An-Naba. Why would they call it Surah An-Naba? Because they said, oh, An-Naba il-Azim. Oh, it says, oh, An-Naba. So they took the word An-Naba and they said, okay, we'll name the surah Surah An-Naba. Okay? Because of this, some scholars, they give different names for different surahs. And in fact, you will actually visibly see this today, actually, even here in Calgary. If you ever go to your masjid, and you, for example, take a Quran that you're used to, the Arabic, the Madani Quran, and you compare it, for example, to the Indo-Pak Quran. You guys know the Indo-Pak Quran? The one that's for those of us maybe who are from Pakistan or whatnot, you're more familiar with that. But if you aren't, maybe you know how sometimes in the masjid you open a Quran and you find the text is a little bit different than the Arab. Exactly, it's a different font. It's a different one from the Arabic text. So if you take those two Qur'ans and you compare them and you compare some surahs, you will find actually different names for those surahs. For example, Surah Al-Masad, in some Qur'ans they will call it Surah Al-Lahab, right? And so on. So Surah An-Naba is actually similar as well. So it is called Surah An-Naba. What does An-Naba mean? It means the great news. And we will talk about this inshallah when we talk about the verses. It is also called Surah Amma, right? Surah Amma. And Amma is translated, the word Amma translated is about what, okay? Like for example, what did you talk about today? I could say Amma, I could use the word Amma in that sentence. About what? That's what Amma means. And some scholars, they call it the surah of Amma Yatasa'alun. So they just take the first verse and they give it the name of the surah. About what are they questioning? And some other scholars, they call it Surah Al-Mu'sirat. Surah Al-Mu'sirat. And because the word Al-Mu'sirat comes up in the actual surah. Alaykum as-salam. So boys on this side, girls on that side. And if there's no chairs, by the way, you can grab chairs from outside over there. So one of the names is called Surah Al-Mu'sirat. What does Al-Mu'sirat mean? We will come to the verse. Al-Mu'sirat means the rain clouds, the clouds that carry rain. So these are some of the different names of Surah An-Naba. So now, with that said, let us dive into the actual verses of the surah. And of course, Surah An-Naba, if you open the Quran, most of the Qurans, you will find it is a page and a half long. So obviously right now, because I plan to kind of take my time over the meanings and to ponder over the meanings and whatnot, I'm not going to cover the entire page and a half of the surah just in today's class. So probably we will finish half of it today. And then inshallah next week we will finish the second half bi'idhnillah. So the surah begins with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yatasa'alun. Amma yatasa'alun. And Amma yatasa'alun, as I mentioned, you will find it in your notes. It is translated, what are they asking one another about? And for those of you, again, who showed up late and you don't have the notes, the sheets, you can grab the worksheets from the front so that you can follow as I am explaining, inshallah. Amma yatasa'alun, what are they asking one another about? This is, of course, referring to the people of Quraysh. The people of Quraysh who are, and you can grab also the one from the last week, is over here also. So this is from last week and this is for this week, inshallah. So what are they asking one another about? This is, of course, referencing to the people of Quraysh and how they were, sitting with one another, and they were, just sitting back, laid back on the couch, sipping on a cup of tea, and they were like just mocking and laughing about an idea of the Day of Judgment and asking one another, oh, do you really think this is something that's going to happen? So Allah Azza wa Jal here, He's referencing them. عَمَّ يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. What are they questioning one another about? عَنِ النَّبَإِ الْعَظِيمِ. About the great news. And you will find in your notes there are some words that are in Arabic that I want you to memorize the meaning for, and I have them listed down here under. So An-Naba is called the great news, and the word Naba is actually used in multiple different places in the Quran in different forms. Okay, so for example, Nabbihum, Anbihum, even actually the word Nabi. You guys know, that when we say Nabi, what does that mean? Messenger, okay? But if you were to look at like the Arabic meaning of the word Nabi, it comes from Naba, okay? It comes from Naba. It's a person who has news to deliver to a group of people. So when we say Nabi, obviously we're referring to the prophets of Allah, but what is a prophet of Allah? What is a Nabi? In a nutshell, he is someone who has news from Allah Azza wa Jal, and he is coming to tell humanity about this news. So An-Naba is a noun that means the event or the news. Al-Azim is the great or the magnificent or the big deal, basically, right? And of course, Allah Azza wa Jal is Al-Azim. This is one of the names of Allah, is Al-Azim. But also Al-Azim is a description that is sometimes given to specific things. And in this case, Allah Azza wa Jal is giving the description of Al-Azim to An-Naba, meaning that this news that they're talking about, the Day of Judgment, is not something very small. It's not just a joke. It's something very, very big. It's such a big deal, and they don't realize it. الَّذِي هُمْ فِيهِ مُخْتَلِفُونَ, over which they disagree. Meaning, of course, referring to the Quraysh, that they are disagreeing with one another about the existence of the Day of Judgment. A lot of them, they refuse to believe it. Only, of course, the Muslims believed in the Day of Judgment. The people of Quraysh, the pagans, the idol worshippers, they did not believe in a Day of Judgment, and they mocked this idea. And we find it in so many different places in the Quran, where the people of Quraysh would constantly say, oh, do you really think that once we become bones, or once we become into dust and sand, do you really think that somehow we're going to become back into human beings again? And so Allah Azza wa Jalla responds to that, and He says, كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ ثُمَّ كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ. So the same verse is almost repeated twice, and we will find this in the Quran. This pattern is repeated a lot. So we'll talk about the pattern in a second, but let's first talk about what does كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ mean. The word كَلَّا means, it's not just no, okay? It's like absolutely, totally not. And it has a stern tone to it, okay? So when Allah Azza wa Jal, you find Allah Azza wa Jal saying in the Quran, saying kalla, Allah is denying something, the strongest of denial. Like, how dare you guys disagree about the Day of Judgment? Who do you guys think you are to even think that you have the ability to, even joke around something so serious about the Day of Judgment? So Allah is saying kalla in a serious warning tone that absolutely not. سَيَعْلَمُونَ. One day they shall find out. سَيَعْلَمُونَ, they will definitely, surely find out. ثُمَّ كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ. And once again, they will surely and definitely find out. Now this is a very strong language that Allah Azza wa Jal is using. Whenever you see Allah Azza wa Jal repeating the same verse one after the other, you have to realize that Allah Azza wa Jal here is not joking around. It's extra serious, and Allah is telling you, look, this is such a big deal that I'm repeating it twice. Okay? So, for example, we find in other places in Juz' Amma even, for example, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا يَوْمُ الدِّينِ ثُمَّ مَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا يَوْمُ الدِّينِ. So, for example, you'll find it in all of it. So, أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرَ كَلَّا سَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ ثُمَّ كَلَّا سَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ. Right? The same idea here. Allah Azza wa Jal is putting a lot of emphasis here. That those people who are sitting down and they think that they can joke about the day of judgment, one day they shall find out. So Allah Azza wa Jal, so just from these few verses that we've just recited in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal is teaching you the day of judgment is not something to be joked around. And there is a lesson for us here to be learned as well. Because sometimes, even as Muslims here, we think sometimes it's okay or funny to joke about certain aspects of our religion. Okay? So sometimes some people, they joke around about the day of judgment. Some people, they joke around prophethood. They joke around about, Jahannam or Allah Azza wa Jal himself. Subhanallah. And they think that it's okay because we are just saying it as a joke and we're not intending it anything offensive or not intending anything bad. Okay? But Allah Azza wa Jal here, He's telling us, look, don't joke around. Those people, the kuffar of Quraysh, they were joking around. And this was the stern warning that they got. So as Muslims, whenever it comes something to do with our deen, with Islam, we should never joke around and we should always take it very seriously. Now that being said, remember last week, and by the way, if you guys at any point you have any questions, you can feel free to raise your hands and we'll make sure to take some time. Oh, you have a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what the Naba, so you know how the surahs did not exactly come down in order?
Yes.
Was this like earlier or later?
This is early, like way towards the start. It wasn't like the first surah or anything like that, but it's definitely among the earlier surahs that came down in Mecca. Okay? So, now that being said, let us talk about the Day of Judgment for a second. Like, what exactly is the Day of Judgment? And as Muslims, what does it really mean for me to believe in the Day of Judgment? When I say, oh, I believe in the Day of Judgment, what are you truly saying over here? Okay, and this is really important to understand because this is a part of our Islamic aqidah. Okay, when we say aqidah, it means our Islamic faith. When you say, when we say something is part of our Islamic aqidah, we say that it literally means that you cannot be a true Muslim unless you fully believe in the whatever we're discussing, okay, about the aqidah. Now we go into one aspect of our Islamic aqidah, and not just that, it's actually one of the pillars of Iman, right? Do you guys remember the pillars of faith, the 6 pillars of Iman? Who can remind me? Yes?
Believe in the book of Allah,
So believing in Allah, believing in the books of Allah, what else? Yeah? Believing in the angels, what else? The prophets, what else? The Day of Judgment, and the last one? مش divine. In Jazakallah, in the Qadr. Yes, Jazakumullah khair. So you guys, we should understand, and we should at least, at the very least, even if you don't understand them, memorize that these are the 6 things that you believe in as a believer. You believe in Allah, you believe in the prophets, you believe in the books, you believe in the Day of Judgment, you believe in the angels, and you believe in Qadr. Okay? And inshallah, we'll just be taking each one of these one by one as we go over the Quran and as the topics come up. But now clearly one of these pillars of Iman, the pillars of faith are coming up, and that is the belief in the Day of Judgment. So what exactly is the Day of Judgment? In a nutshell, to keep it very, very simple, and Allah Azza wa Jal references the Day of Judgment in many different names in the Quran to tell us different things, to teach us different aspects about the Day of Judgment. So to label it very, very simply, look, you will never fully understand what the Day of Judgment is, okay? Whatever your brain tries to picture about the Day of Judgment, the truth is the Day of Judgment is way beyond anything you can imagine. But Allah Azza wa Jal taught us different names of the Day of Judgment, and also the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave us certain descriptions. The Quran also gave us descriptions, almost to give us different pictures or different snapshots about the Day of Judgment and what happens in the Day of Judgment. One of the names of the Day of Judgment is Al-Yawm Al-Akhir. Al-Yawm Al-Akhir. Al-Yawm means the day, Al-Akhir means the final or the last. So Literally, the day of judgment is the last day of existence, the last day of everything that you know. Okay? The last day in this universe. Okay? And after this day, there is no other day. Khalas, after this day, it's either going to be people living in Jannah or people who are being punished in Jahannam forever. And there is no more, second tries or anything like this. And so what happens on this day? Everybody, humanity is resurrected back to life. Okay? So every single person, starting from Prophet Adam alayhi salam, who's probably now has passed away thousands and maybe perhaps tens of thousands of years ago, Allahu a'lam how long ago, as Prophet Adam alayhi salam came. From Adam alayhi salam to the final human being to be born into this earth, imagine how many billions, maybe how many trillions of human beings, good and evil, Muslims, non-Muslims, all of these people, they will be brought back to life. Okay? So this is among the important beliefs of the Day of Judgment, to believe that everybody, you will be brought back to life. If there's no chairs, you can grab chairs from the outside to the left. Okay? Now, of course, by the way, and this is not the main topic for today, so I'll just mention it. When people are brought back to life, okay, they are not brought back to life on this earth. Okay? So this earth, khalas, is going to be gone. People will wake up when they're brought back to life and they're going to be in a different world, I guess, for a lack of better terms. Okay? They're going to be in a different dimension, in a different universe or something like this. Okay? So this earth will not be there on the Day of Judgment. Now, why would Allah Azza wa Jal bring you back to life on the last day? Very simple. Because just like you have been reminded over and over throughout your life, you have good deeds and you have bad deeds. And now is the Day of Judgment is the day where you stand in front of Allah Azza wa Jal, and Allah puts all of your good deeds in front of you and all of your bad deeds in front of you. And Allah Azza wa Jal asks you, line by line, you did this bad deed. Why did you do it? If you have an excuse, bring it up. If you don't have an excuse, well, too bad. It's going to be counted as a bad deed. And same thing with the good deeds as well. They will be counted as good deeds. And eventually, all of your deeds, good deeds and bad deeds, we are told that there is a scale on the Day of Judgment. Now, is it an actual physical scale like the scales that we have in school and in our science classes and things like this? Or is it like a different kinds of scale? Allahu a'lam. We don't care. Okay, but there is a scale. You guys know what a scale is, by the way, right? Yeah. It's used to weigh different things. So you put one thing on one side and you put one thing on another side, and then the heavier side is the one that goes down, right? So your deeds will be put on one side, good deeds, will put on one side, and your bad deeds are put on another side, and depending on what the scale gives, a person's destination will be determined. This person either goes to Jannah or this person will end up in Jahannam. Now, of course, I'm really summarizing it here. There's much more that actually happens behind the scenes on the Day of Judgment, but perhaps that's a topic for a different day. So, you have a question? Yes?
It also said that the people the Muslims who go to Jahannam, they're gonna go to Jahannam for a couple of, like, I don't know, some time, and they're
Yes.
gonna go into a specific river that cleans their body and then go into a
Yes, so you're correct. Yes, so obviously this is what I mentioned. Like, I'm not gonna go into all of the details, but what you said is absolutely correct. Our friend basically just said that sometimes on the Day of Judgment there are certain Muslims, maybe they were really bad Muslims who committed lots of sins. By Allah's permission, they would go into Jahannam, but then eventually they will be taken out and enter into Jannah. Yes.
Isn't it a punishment for Allah to make you read your book line by line?
It is a form of punishment. So yes, obviously, so I'm not going to go into all the details. So some people, on the Day of Judgment, they get a free ticket into Jannah. Allah doesn't even ask them anything, right? And may Allah make us out of these people, right? That we just enter into Jannah for free. Some people, they're asked line by line, why did you commit this sin? Why did you commit that sin? So maybe their questioning maybe could take several years, Allahu a'lam. So the point here is, the Day of Judgment is the final day. It is the day where people are brought back to life, and the day where people are resurrected, are held into account and either enter Jannah or Jahannam. And there are many different names, as I just mentioned, for the Day of Judgment. And I listed some of them in the notes. And once again, for those of you who came late and you don't have notes and you want to follow with my explanation, you can take these two worksheets in the front and you can follow with us, inshallah. Of the names that we will see in Juz' Amma, now of course throughout the Quran there's more names. In Juz' Amma specifically, we find multiple names. We find, for example, As-Sa'ah. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ السَّاعَةِ أَيَّانَ مُرْسَاهَا, right? As-Sa'ah is the hour. And we'll go into more details about these names when we get to them in those verses, inshallah. But I'm just mentioning the names that you should know. For example, of the names that we will run into in Juz' Amma, At-Tammatul Kubra. At-Tammatul Bukra, Al-Kubra, the greatest disaster. Okay? In another surah, As-Sakhah, the extremely loud and deafening sound. In another surah, Al-Ghashiyah, the overwhelming event. In another surah, Al-Qari'ah, the striking disaster. Okay? So all of these are different names of the Day of Judgment. And again, each name teaches us something different about the Day of Judgment. So to quickly wrap up about believing in the Day of Judgment, what does it really mean as a Muslim, as a believer? What does it mean for me to believe on the day in the Day of Judgment? And this is really, really important to understand, because a person who does not believe in one or more of these things that I'm about to mention is not considered a believer. Okay, so this is important for us as Muslims to believe in. Okay, so first and foremost, and I mentioned them over here, believing in the last day includes believing in the life in the grave. Okay, so as Muslims, we believe that when a person dies, okay, so maybe you might hear in your masjid or you might hear it on social media that so and so passed away, right? There's a janazah prayer that will take place on this person, right? Have you guys ever heard of a janazah prayer taking place? Maybe you've prayed janazah in your life, okay? What's actually happening to that person right now who's dead? So there is actually a whole series of things that are happening to him right now. From our perspective as people who are living on earth, we just see a dead body. And so all we do is we wash the body, we shroud it, we pray janazah, and we take it to the graveyard and we bury it. But the actual person is going through a whole different experience. And in fact, they're living right now a different life of this world. Not the same life here where you're getting tested and there's good deeds and bad deeds. Khalas, there's no more good deeds and bad deeds. Right now, to sum it up, you're living in a waiting room. And you're just simply now sitting and waiting for the Day of Judgment to take place. Depending on your deeds, your waiting room is either going to be a really, really nice place, really comforting and really pleasant and smells really good, and you have good food and you get to see people and you have a house and all of these things. Whereas some people, their waiting room is a place of punishment. However, as Muslims, we believe that as soon as a person dies, it's only their physical body that dies. That person is actually not dead. They're experiencing the life in the grave that we refer to as al-barzakh. So that is one of the beliefs of the Day of Judgment. Of the beliefs that we have about the Day of Judgment is that we firmly believe as Muslims that everybody, there are no exceptions, everybody will be resurrected back to life, including prophets, including every single human being on earth. We firmly believe that on the Day of Judgment, there is going to be a questioning. Allah Azza wa Jal will, every person will take a turn to stand in front of Allah Azza wa Jal and to answer for their deeds. And of course, depending on the person, either this is going to be a really happy meeting, Allah is going to, inshallah, be with you, hey, yo, bro, I've been waiting for you, I've been watching how you've been, committing good deeds in your world, and I've been looking forward to meet you. So to some people, Allah looks forward to meeting them, and Allah is excited actually to meet them. Whereas some people, their questioning is going to be very severe. We also believe, as I already mentioned, that there is some sort of scale, that there is some balance where deeds are weighed, good deeds versus bad deeds. And also we believe in the existence of Jannah and Jahannam. Now someone might ask, what about right now as we speak? Is Jannah and Jahannam something that exists? And the answer to this is yes. Jannah and Jahannam, as we speak, are both entities that currently exist. Where and how, and is there anybody there, or things like this? Again, this is beyond our knowledge, but we believe that Jannah and Jahannam right now as we speak, They exist. Allah Azza wa Jalla has already created them. So the reason, even though some of these points that I mentioned may look very obvious to you, the reason why I mention this is because it's extremely important for every one of us, young and old, no matter how young you are. It's important for you to understand these points, because someone who does not believe in such things, his faith is incomplete. And obviously when you meet Allah Azza wa Jal, you want to meet Allah with a complete faith. Questions? Yes. Raise your voice a little bit because I cannot hear you. Okay, that's a very good question. It's a very common one. So our friend just asked an important question and it comes up a lot, so listen very carefully. What if I have non-Muslim friends? What's going to happen to them on the Day of Judgment? What if I have non-Muslim friends that are really, really kind and nice people, and they're honest and they're generous and all of these things? What's going to happen to them? So Allah Azza wa Jal is fair and just, okay? And Allah Azza wa Jal, if someone does good, Allah shall reward them for doing that good. However, depending on the person, the way that Allah rewards them is different. So for a believer, you know, alhamdulillah, maybe you're praying your 5 daily prayers every single day, you give a lot of sadaqah, you're a good person, okay? So, and we believe that Allah, bi'idhnillah, you know, is rewarding you very, very generously. Now, does that mean that because Allah is rewarding you, just because you're a good Muslim, you're gonna become a millionaire? Just because of this, just because you're a good Muslim, you're never gonna become sick in your life, you're never gonna run into any problems? No, obviously not. You guys know, you have problems in your life, I have problems in my life. We all have problems in our life, even though we all try to be good Muslims. Okay, that's because for a lot of Muslims, Allah Azza wa Jal wants to save the reward for the Day of Judgment. Okay? Whereas some people, specifically the non-Muslims, the disbelievers, Allah rewards them, but the reward is in this world, and only in this world. Because in order to get the reward of the next world, the requirement is you must be a Muslim. Okay? So the answer is, your non-Muslim friends who are really, really good people, Allah shall reward them. And most likely, they will become, they will live a good life. They will, enjoy, they will have a happy life. They may become really rich. Maybe they won't run into many issues in their life. Maybe they'll grow old and have a big family and a big house, and, they'll travel the world and they'll get to enjoy to the maximum. However, this non-Muslim on the Day of Judgment, he does not have a reward with Allah Azza wa Jal. And so the requirement to enter Jannah is you must believe in La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah. This is a strict requirement. And this is why, on this note, our duty, our responsibility, if you're so worried for your non-Muslim friend who is so good, why don't you tell them about Islam? Why don't you pull them towards Islam so that your kind-hearted non-Muslim friend, inshallah, would accept Islam because of you, and they would enter Jannah because you invited them to Islam. Okay? Question, yes?
What happens if your friend is non-Muslim, but he's not an atheist?
It doesn't matter. It's either Muslim or non-Muslim.
Muslim, but not Sunni, like Shia or something.
That depends. Okay? So that depends. Because, and again, I don't want to confuse people here and I don't want to get into different details. But depends on what you mean by Shia. Because even when you say Shia, it can mean different things. Okay? So if my Shia friend, for example, thinks that, the wife of the Rasul ﷺ, Aisha, radiallahu anha, is a horrible person, and he thinks that almost all of the Sahaba are horrible people, then I'm sorry, I cannot say that this guy is a Muslim. Even if he says, oh, I'm a Muslim Shi'i, okay? So there are certain, and this is what I'm saying, right? This is why it's important for us to understand what we believe in and what makes a person a Muslim. And so, of the things that we believe in are the points that I mentioned about the Day of Judgment. You must firmly believe in all these things in order for you to meet the requirements of Muslims. So I'll take some questions a bit later on. I want to move on for now just for the sake of time. So this is the first portion of Surah An-Naba. Allah Azza wa Jal is giving you an overview about why is this surah being revealed, right? عَمَّا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ, they're questioning about the Day of Judgment, and He's giving them a stern warning. And we just went over what is the Day of Judgment. Then Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the evidences. And this is important for us to understand, because maybe to some of us, you grew up in a Muslim family and you were just told, memorize this, memorize that. You have to believe, you must believe this, you must believe that. But maybe you go through a certain phase and you feel like, what's the proof? What is there something I can see or something that I can use to prove everything that these people are telling me, to prove that Allah exists, to prove that the day of judgment will actually happen? Like, what's the proof? This is what Allah Azza wa Jal lists for you here, gives you some of the evidences in Surah An-Naba. Allah Azza wa Jal says, أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا. Have they not seen, have these people who are doubting the day of judgment, have they not seen how we created this earth from nothing? And we made it into like a bed, like a smooth, comfortable place. وَالْجِبَالَ أَوْتَادًا. And haven't they seen the mountains around them? When you go and travel today to Banff, and you go on a road trip and you see the beautiful Rocky Mountains around you, and you see huge mountains, maybe you go hiking. Has it never ever crossed your mind, how are these mountains created? And subhanAllah, mountains are such amazing creations of Allah Azza wa Jal. And even modern science, maybe they teach you this in your science textbooks. What you see of the mountains today is only actually a small part of the mountain, right? Have you ever seen that picture online of like an iceberg, where you see like the tip of an iceberg at the top, and then they show you deep, that there is like a deep, like the actual body of the iceberg is all the way deep into the ocean? Do you guys know what I'm talking about here? The mountains are the same thing as well. What you see visibly in your eyes as you travel to Banff, for example, those mountains, that's just a tiny bit of the actual mountain. The majority of the mountain is all the way into the earth. And this is only a modern scientific technology. And yet, look how Allah describes it. وَالْجِبَالَ أَوْتَادًا. What does أَوْتَادًا mean? It's a peg. Peg. You know what a peg is? Like, you know, for example, like when you go camping and you have, okay, this is going to be my horrible art over here. You have your tent over here, okay? This is, I guess this is like the entrance, the zipper. Okay? Have you guys ever set up a tent in your life before? No? But you've seen pictures of tents, right? Okay? So usually there's like ropes and sticks and stuff like this to set up the tent. And usually, how do you keep the tent stable? Like, for example, if you're in a camping ground in like today's weather and it's super, super windy, you don't want your flint to go flying out. Usually the tent comes with like a plastic piece of nails, like something like looks like this, and it's like really tall like this, right? You guys know what I'm talking about? And then they put one here, and you're supposed to kind of like hammer it into the tent, into the ground, and then put another one here, and then put another one here, and then put another one here, and in the back. Why? To make it stable. So this is what we call a peg. So when Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَالْجِبَالَ أَوْتَادًا, this peg, this is, so now imagine the tent is the whole earth, and this nail, this is what the mountains are for. And it's so amazing because this is only a modern discovery, whereas the Quran mentions it over 1,400 years ago, that these mountains are used to stabilize the earth. Without the mountains, you know, you will not be able to walk on the earth that you walk on today, because it will be very, and you will maybe even sink into the earth. But the mountains, they give it that support. So Allah is saying, have they not wondered, have they not ever seen and looked at the mountains, how they are like pegs? وَخَلَقْنَاكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. And have they not seen how we created everything in pairs? Have they not seen how we created, you know, for every animal there's a male and a female. For every human there's a male and a female. For every creation, okay, there's a male and a female. We've created you in pairs. وَجَعَلْنَا نَوْمَكُمْ سُبَاتًا. And have they not seen the sleep that they sleep at night? Who created this sleep? Who allowed your body to be able to rest in this manner? Nawmakum here means your sleep. Subata means a deep rest. Okay? Subata, if you want to get technical in Arabic language, subata means like basically your body is fully still, but your soul is still inside your body. This is what nawmakum subata means. Okay? وَجَعَلْنَا نَوْمَكُمْ سُبَاتًا. Have they not wondered who made them to be able to rest at night? وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ لِبَاسًا. Have you never ever wondered about the night? Who created something called the night in the first place? Who created the daytime in the first place? Who created the perfect balance between day and night? وَجَعَلْنَا النَّهَارَ مَعَاشًا. Who is it that created the night as a cover, a darkness, a cover for you, so that people understand that, it's nighttime, it's time for me to go back home, it's time for me to go and rest. وَجَعَلْنَا النَّهَارَ مَعَاشًا. And programmed us so that when we see the sun out and outside, that's when we leave our houses, that's when we go to our schools, that's when our parents go to work, and that's when people are outside and alive. Who made it that way? وَجَعَلْنَا النَّهَارَ مَعَاشًا وَبَنَيْنَا فَوْقَكُمْ سَبْعًا شِدَادًا. And we have they not seen the sky above them? And Allah Azza wa Jal even here gives you a sneak peek of unseen knowledge. And He tells you that there are actually 7 heavens above you. Okay? So the sky that you see above you, boys and girls, the sky that you see above you is called as-sama ad-dunya. Okay? The lowest heaven, the lowest sky, this is the sky that you see above you. But in reality, there is a total of 7 heavens. Now, what are these 7 heavens, and what's in them, and what do they look like, and what's their purpose? We don't know anything about the other heavens, okay? We don't know anything at all about them. And no matter how far up you go, if you were to write a spaceship and you were to go up in the sky and keep going up, you're not going to go into the second and the third and the fourth heaven. It's not going to work. It doesn't work that way, okay? So it's only the angels, by the permission of Allah, who are allowed to go up and down, and only certain things can go through these heavens, but we don't know anything about them. But Allah Azza wa Jal here, He is telling you who created this sky that is above you, who made it so perfect that you don't find any cracks in the sky, you don't find any imperfections in it. Ever since it was created, to this day, you don't find a single imperfection in the creation of the sky. فَسَبْعًا شِدَادًا وَجَعَلْنَا سِرَاجًا وَهَّاجًا. And have they not seen how we created a siraj? Siraj means a lamp, and wahaj means very bright. So Allah Azza wa Jal here is obviously referencing the sun. Have they not seen how we created the sun, which is a very bright light bulb, basically, right? Who created the sun? Everything lives based on the sun. Plants cannot live without the sun. Humans cannot live without the sun. Animals cannot live without the sun. Who put the sun? And who put it so perfectly? And perhaps maybe they teach you this in science class as well, that our earth is so perfectly positioned that if it was any closer to the sun, we would burn up. And if it was any further from the sun, we would freeze. Yet it is positioned so perfectly that we have regulated temperatures. We have some seasons where it's a little bit cold, some seasons where it's a little bit hot, but we can live through them. Yes, you need a winter jacket in winter. Yes, in summer you need air conditioning. But overall, you can live on this earth in all of its weathers. Who made the sun, and who gave you who made it so that the earth is in this manner? وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ الْمُعْصِرَاتِ مَاءً ثَجَّاجًا. وَأَنزَلْنَا, and we have brought down مِنَ الْمُعْصِرَاتِ. Al-mu'sirat comes from the verb in Arabic عَصَرَ. Okay, عَصَرَ is to squeeze. Okay, you know how when you take like a cloth, right, like a rag, okay, and you know how, like, if you're like helping your mom to clean at home, for example, and she's like, oh, grab this rag and wet it with water, right? So what do you usually do? You open the sink, you put the rag under the sink, and then what do? You squeeze it. And what happens when you squeeze? Water comes pouring under. That is al-mu'asirat. That is what Allah Azza wa Jalla is describing, the rain clouds. Okay? So it's rain clouds that come and they carry rain inside them, and it's almost the same way that you squeeze a rag. These rain clouds, they squeeze and they allow the water to come down. And subhanallah, the water cycle is something miraculous if you think about it. They teach you this at school, I believe, right? The water cycle. They teach you precipitation, condensation, evaporation, and all of these, fancy words, right? To teach you that this is how rain is made, and this is how people receive rain. Yet Allah Azza wa Jalla, once again, we find in the Quran, Allah over 1,400 years ago taught you how the water cycle works. And Allah tells you that first we send the wind, and the wind brings forth together the clouds, and then the clouds, they carry the rain, and we learn today through science it's through evaporation and through the heat of the sun, right? So the brother Habibi, shh, okay. So the water evaporates, and that is how the rain clouds become heavy, and eventually the wind carries the clouds into a certain place like Calgary, and then guess what? The rag gets squeezed, and that's how we get rain, or that's how we get snow. So Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, have they not seen how these clouds, al-mu'sirat, and by the way, ma here means water, thajjaja means pouring. It pours down over them. What is the use of this water? لِنُخْرِجَ بِهِ حَبًّا وَنَبَاتًا. From this water, everything that you eat, everything that you drink is because of this water that comes from above you. The plants that you eat, the bread that you eat, the vegetables, any kind of plant, we all know that cannot grow without water. The animals even that you eat, the meat, can this animal survive without water? It cannot survive without water. You cannot survive without water. So Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, look at these, simple clouds of water vapor above you. That's why you are alive today. لِنُخْرِجَ بِهِ حَبًّا وَنَبَاتًا وَجَنَّاتٍ أَلْفَافًا. You know how beautiful the summer here gets in Calgary? Or in the spring, everything is green. And then in the fall, you get to see the different roses and then the different color leaves. Some of them are red, some of them are yellow, some of them are green. And it's beautiful. People like to go out and have photo shoots and take pictures outside because it's so beautiful. Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, where do you think all of this come from? And over all of this, now you come and you dare ask, is Allah real? And you dare ask, can Allah really bring me back to life? Do you not think that the one who created you from nothing, do you not think the one who brought the rain when there was no rain, do you think the one who brought out the plants from earth when there were no plants, do you now think yourself to be such a big deal that Allah cannot bring you back to life? Where were you before you were born? Nobody knows. Before you were even before your mother, even held you in her womb. Where were you? You were nothing. You didn't even exist. Nobody could even imagine what you looked like. Nobody could even imagine what your name was because you were nothing. You didn't even exist. Yet Allah, by His permission, made you exist. So the same one who made you exist when you were nothing, do you think He cannot make you exist again when you simply die and bring you back to life? And Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions this on many places in the Quran, and Allah mentions and makes it clear, it's not difficult for Allah, right? Human beings, they think they're such a big deal. Allah Azza wa Jalla, even in other places in the Quran, reminds that you see the heavens and the earth, the creation of the heavens and the earth are much of a bigger deal than you. You are nothing. The creation of humans is so easy, and the resurrection of humans is so easy as well. So all of these verses that come in the Surah Amma, in Surah An-Naba, that come to tell us about the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal, that tell you about the mountains and the sky and the rain and all of these things, they're not simply stating facts. They're meant to make you ponder and think. And so I made a whole section here about, this is the whole point obviously about the Quran, what we call at-tadabbur. What does tadabbur mean? Tadabbur doesn't just mean that, I just look and I read the translation of the Quran and call it a day. It's like I really feel how amazing Allah Azza wa Jal is through His verses of the Quran. So the goal here is we want to train ourselves, and I'm going to be going through this journey with you inshallah in Juz' Amma. But we want to train ourselves that as we read through the Quran and as you read the translation of the Quran, pause after each verse and think about how amazing the verse that you just read is. So when you read the verses about the earth and the creation of the earth and the plants and whatnot, think about how amazing it is for Allah to be able to create such an earth and make the perfect balance of earth versus water, to put us the perfect to provide oxygen for free in the air, right? And to provide it with salt water, fresh water, to provide us with ice and water, to provide us in hot areas and cold areas. Think about how amazing it is for Allah Azza wa Jalla to be able to create such things. When you read about the mountains, Think about how amazing, these pegs are that stabilize our earth. Think about your own day-to-day life, your own sleep. How amazing that Allah programmed something like sleep. Imagine, you all know how you feel if you spend one night without sleeping, right? You feel like so groggy the next day. You feel like so moody. You feel like you have no energy. You don't feel like doing anything. Out of Allah's blessing for you, He made you able to sleep. And had He wanted, He would have made you suffer without you being able to sleep. The night and the day, the alternation of the night and the day. How amazing it is that Allah Azza wa Jal made it so perfect that every time the earth rotates once, it's 24 hours. And in that 24 hours, there's the perfect balance between sunlight and nighttime. And you have time to do everything in your day. You have time to rest at night, and you have time to do everything throughout the day as well. The sun that gives you light and heat. Again, without the sun, life cannot exist. And also the amazing water cycle that really gives life to everything that you know, including our own selves. So we'll conclude today's class by reflecting, and next week, inshallah, we'll cover the rest of the verses of Surah An-Naba, inshallah. But for now, what are the lessons that we learned from the beginning of the surah until the verse وَجَنَّاتٍ أَلْفَافًا? I wrote them down here for you over here as well. And I kind of wrote down, I forgot to change the title here in the section. It's not supposed to say pondering over the signs around us. It's supposed to say lessons from verse number 1 to verse number 16. Okay? So, first and foremost, as I mentioned towards the start, the first lesson, عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون كلا سيعلمون ثم كلا سيعلمون. Never be someone who mocks and laughs and makes jokes about the religion of Islam or about the Day of Judgment or anything similar. Just because you see people around you on social media or maybe at school making fun and making jokes about these things does not mean that it's normal or that it is okay. We have to be, as Muslims, very careful about this. Of the lessons that we see a whole section in Surah An-Naba dedicated towards the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal. So Allah Azza wa Jal is teaching you everywhere that you go. Okay? So I don't know what you guys have planned for today. I mean, like, it's a Saturday, the weather is pretty nice, it's a little bit windy, but the weather overall is not that bad. Maybe you're gonna take a walk in the park, maybe you're gonna go somewhere, I don't know. Okay? Maybe you're gonna wait later in the week. Wherever you go, Allah Azza wa Jal is teaching you. Look around you and always remember Allah. If you go and take a walk in the park and you see the Bow River next to you, think about the creation of the river. When you see the trees in front of you, think about the creation of the trees. When you see the birds flying in the air above you, think about who made them this way. How are they able to fly and go down and go up without having big airplanes and engines and all of these? So our brains should start being, we should train ourselves and our brains that anywhere that we go, we always connected to the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal. And also, we find that Islam, this is of the lessons that we learn here, from the blessings that Allah Azza wa Jal is listing down, Allah is teaching us that Islam is not an extreme religion, right? Some people have a misunderstanding that in order for you to be a good Muslim, you have to stop everything you're doing, you have to open the Quran 24 hours, and you have to pray 24 hours, and you can only be a good person if you're basically living in the masjid. Okay? This is an incorrect understanding of what is a good Muslim. Because Allah Azza wa Jal is teaching you here in Surah An-Naba that there is a daytime and there's a night time. There's a resting time and there's a working time. Allah never praises someone who fails at this life just because they're saying, I want to memorize Quran and I want to do this and that. Rather, Allah Azza wa Jal praises someone who is successful in this world and successful in their deen as well. So, you should be working hard at school. You should be sleeping well at night. You should be getting good grades. But you should also be working on your deen and memorizing Quran. Someone who does good at both, that is what Allah Azza wa Jal praises in the Quran. And also, when Allah Azza wa Jal lists all of these blessings of the lessons that we learn, is we need to be always grateful to Allah for whatever He has given you. The food that you eat, the water that you drink. This is why we have been taught ever since we were kids. Anytime you eat something, you have to say after it, what do you say? Alhamdulillah, right? You say Alhamdulillah. Whenever you finish using the washroom, you say Alhamdulillah. Whenever you finish eating, you say Alhamdulillah. When you drink water, Alhamdulillah. Why? Because these are all blessings that Allah Azza wa Jal gave you without you even having to do anything. This is how generous Allah Azza wa Jal is towards us. And last and the most, perhaps the most and the main and primary lesson in Surah An-Naba so far is to teach you, if Allah is able to create the mountains like this, and Allah is able to create the heavens and the earth and all of these things. Keep it with you, take it home. And Allah is able to create all of these things. Do you really not think that Allah can just as easily bring you back to life? We firmly believe that yes, Allah surely is able to bring us back to life in this manner. Are there any questions? Could be about anything. Any questions about the surah, about the words, about things in general, about the Day of Judgment? Yes?
It's not about any of that, but is the lesson end?
أخي, go home, يلا. خلصنا أنت. لا إله إلا الله. Okay. Any other actual questions? Okay. So for those of you who didn't take the notes at the start of the class, you can take them from the front. I encourage you to keep these notes with you, okay? So I did record the class and I will be uploading it as usual, so that you can study them again if you wish to listen to the lecture. But the purpose of these notes is for you to keep them, because every month, as I mentioned last week, we will have a day where maybe we do like a 20-minute quiz/exam just to kind of test our knowledge so that we can keep up with our information. So yeah, keep these with you, inshallah. Don't throw, please do me a favor. Don't throw them around, don't toss them, don't make them into paper airplanes, don't throw them in the garbage, okay? جزاكم الله خيرا سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم.